You know why? This is a time of God's wrath. That's not a time to be sympathetic. It's a time to run. It's a time to run, Christians. We don't really understand that ourselves. Why? Because we're too spoiled in the age of grace that we're in. So we're under the age of grace. So living under that age of grace, we don't understand God's wrath, unfortunately. So then, why did God strike her down too? Because she looked behind him. So she disobeyed God. What did God say? God pointed out that he wanted them to escape. And he wanted them to get away from the city. If you look at verse, let's see right here, verse 17, he says, escape for thy life, look not behind thee. See that? God made it clear, don't look behind you, all right? God made it clear, don't look back, take up your cross and follow me, right? And then because that one turn, it costed her life. So it's very important. Now, I do want to say this. What I want to say is, it's actually, before you think God is too harsh, it's not because, to my understanding, God striking her down like that, even though I said it that way. It's not that, oh, you disobeyed me, bam, like that. No, it's because his judgment is so severe against sin, he's warning them, look, don't look back, because that's how bad the consequence of sin is. The consequence of sin is so bad that you shouldn't look behind. So it's not a matter of God striking the person down, it's a matter of the consequence of sin that strikes it down. The problem with people nowadays is, if you're reaping what you've sown, it's more so of not God chastising you, but more so of your sin. Right. We have to understand that. So we can't really blame God. It's a matter of, you have to blame sin for that. Yep. So why do you play with sin? Why are you merciful with sin when it's going to strike you down like that? Yeah. Yeah. So we have to take that account seriously. We don't take sin seriously. So then she became a pillar of salt. So that's how she became a pillar of salt. Now let's go through 24, 25, 26, how this all ties to hell. Why is it that I teach that Sodom and Gomorrah got burned with hell fire? So I've explained a little bit of that at Genesis 14, so I'll expound it again right here. First of all, there is a question at verse 24. The Bible shows that it rained, right? So it rained fire and brimstone out of heaven, upon Sodom and Gomorrah. So, Pastor, for you to say that it came from hell doesn't make sense, because it fell from God out of heaven. Well, you have to understand this. First of all, there are these signs that it is hell, because if you look at verse 24, it says fire and brimstone, right? All right, what's fire and brimstone? Look at Revelation 21:8. Revelation 21:8. It's hell. Hell has fire and brimstone. So we're going to establish several cases on why Sodom and Gomorrah, when it was burned with fire and brimstone, or when it was burned with fire from the Lord, that this is referring to hell. So here are several cases to establish these arguments. So why is it hell? One, it's because of fire and brimstone. That's what the Bible called it. Fire and brimstone. Well, why did you say, what are you going to do with it coming out of heaven? Well, that's where number two comes in that people don't really take time to think about. People today, there's a lot of Christians who actually talk about today, that the lava that we get from the volcano eruption from the core of the earth, that's where hell is. So think about it. When hell is referring to volcano activity, then think about it. Isn't it raining? It is raining. And that's where you can get the brimstone as well. I had given a teaching at Revelation where it could possibly refer to like some kind of stone of fire. But sulfur is also called stones of fire. It's more likely that it's referring to sulfur, but I leave the interpretation open to some kind of stones of fire. Besides that, returning back to Genesis 19, the point is that all of this sulfur activity, lava activity, fire activity, brimstone activity, raining out from the sky but coming from hell itself, volcano fits it very perfectly. So you notice that God, the people were thinking, we're doing so well in Hawaii over here, and we have a different party, different kind of belief and system, but it's just so pleasant out here, and then God just has to just do one of those little volcanoes. Okay, now look at Revelation 21, verse 8. But the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. That is referring to hell. See, fire and brimstone. Another one is Jude. Go to the book of Jude. Notice when Sodom and Gomorrah was burned to the ground, it was burned with hell fire. It wasn't burned with just fire out of heaven, some simple fire out of heaven. No, this kind of fire is not simple. It's eternal fire. It's hell fire. Look at Jude 7. Even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh, are set forth an example, suffering the vengeance of what kind of fire? Eternal fire. All right, go to Mark 9 now. Mark 9. So there's no doubt it was burned with hell fire. So then number 3, why is that the case? And I will temporarily move aside here, that way the people can see the writing. So number 3, it's because the Bible says it was actually burned with hell fire. There's no doubt about that. It's going to be cut off here, so...